Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Sam Levy, President of YOOSEC, to discuss technology and applications that fight terrorism and security threats. Sam, it's great to see you. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you for having me, Jill.
And Sam, tell us about YOOSEC and the sectors that you serve.
Actually, YOOSEC is a high-tech, innovative company specializing in safety and security solutions for the terror, homeland security, corporate, healthcare, and transportation industries. We have created a set of softwares and technological solutions that are able to identify any type of suspicious behavior in an objective and rational manner so that organizations can receive early warning and anticipate a threat before it becomes an emergency.
Can you give us an example of a threat averted or how you helped a government or company?
Of course. Well, don't forget that our background is in many, many years of anti-terror, counter-terror, and security. So we had to put a lot of our operational knowledge in developing the technology. But we've identified suspicious behavior of people collecting information on airports, people that are trying to target different entities and are being proactively using how to approach in order to carry a type of attack, or if it's a data breach, any type of threat that has been identified is then basically in real time taken, transferred to the entities, and in real time we can anticipate it. We've had also examples happening in homeland security related things on the potential terrorists which were approaching not only a target, but we're going to actually start shooting, and their suspicious behavior was identified by the use of the system, which interacts between human interaction and technological interaction. So we have basically an algorithm which in real time is analyzing data coming in and is able to define whether what is being observed is suspicious or not. So we're saving a lot of time, because when images, for example, are being transferred to cameras, you have to have people that are reading what the cameras are showing in the monitors. And you and I could be watching a situation but interpreting it differently. So here we wanted to overcome that. We wanted to anticipate. So we're able to rationally and objectively in real time identify suspicious behavior and then respond with the most critical and the most surgical response. So obviously a response to suspicious behavior in a knife attack is not going to be the same as in a data breach. So the idea is that once I know that there are signs, I can connect the dots, and after that I can respond accordingly. Now, response could be continuing to observe, it could be sharing it with law enforcement. So the response depends on the organization's protocols and procedures.
Israel is well known for its swift response to terrorism and security threats. And as a lead consultant for the past 25 years in Israel and abroad, how has the field of security evolved in that time?
Actually, we're always running after the bad guys, and we're always in a race in which we have to anticipate and get into their psychology of thinking. I think that's a big challenge, but it's already something that we have ingrained in our DNA. Transferring that to organizations is somewhat of a challenge, because often you have different realities with different safety and security cultures. The mindset is not always the same. This is exactly what we tried to achieve, is we wanted to create a standard. Every organization needs to be able to manage its risks. Managing the risk is not only preventing them, but it's responding them. One of the biggest challenges now that we're seeing in the security industry is combining prevention and efficient emergency management under one umbrella. We all want to prevent, but what does prevention mean? Prevention means being proactive and anticipating, but once you've anticipated, you need to have the current protocols and the current responses that you can immediately apply and implement so that you contain the risk from becoming a major threat and a major emergency.
What makes YOOSEC technology and applications unique from other security providers?
I think we've tailored to different industries, which is something of that is very important. In other words, if you're a hospital, you can use our technology. If you're an airport, you can use our technology. This is one of the beauties of it, that we don't have to create a new product for every industry. Another very strong advantage is the fact that we're able to, regardless of who is working in the organization, we can create a standard. In other words, if you and I are working in different departments, in different organizations, you will not necessarily be better than me. We will all be able to perform the diligent activities we have to do for preventing and for responding in an objective and in a similar manner. So by creating a standard, it means that we can actually give organizations a new way of reaching their goals without sacrificing and without getting into different liabilities and paying a very heavy price. So I'm using the current employees or the current human resources that I have, and I'm turning them into very intelligent sensors. Why? Because they spend 8 to 10 hours working in the organization. And from my point of view, they're a great asset. Another thing that we've changed completely is that organizations can no longer just rely on security departments. You know, security departments are there, they have to respond, but they cannot manage all the risks and all the threats. So we've actually made the employees part of the solution, rather than making the employees part of the problem and relying everything on security departments or on law enforcement. Whoever is going to be touched and facing the emergency is the best person to actually prevent that emergency from even starting. And that's a revolutionary concept.
Mm-hmm. Sam, what do you think the security landscape will look like in the near term and next 25 years? Are governments and corporates preparing for it appropriately?
I think the current pandemic shows that, you know, governments did not prepare for emergencies. I think there's a conceptual resistance to actually creating the right theater for. What does preparation mean? Preparation means, first of all, understanding how different scenarios can manifest themselves. I mean, for years, people have been speaking about pandemics, active shooters, terrorist attacks, but we see that when it comes to real time, we're unable to actually work and live with those incidents. We're always reacting when it's too late. We're always actually responding and finding out that what we did was not good enough, was not appropriate enough. And governments and organizations tend to apply a copy-paste approach, which means if I know how to behave with a fire, I'm going to use that in a knife attack, I'm going to use that in a cyber attack. It doesn't work like that. There are many different scenarios. Each one has their own specifications, their own features. The adversaries we're facing are not the same. When you're facing an inner threat is not the same thing as facing a terrorist organization. When your adversary is your competitor, it's not the same thing. So I think there is a lack of understanding what the current risk is and how to respond to that risk. We're very lazy in wanting to respond in a surgical manner. We're always trying to find something which is very easy and applicable. And unfortunately, when it comes to emergencies, it doesn't work like that. The other problem is that most of the things that governments and organizations put into place are not properly tested before. They seem on paper to be very, very good, but when we actually go through the reality test, we find out that we cannot pass that reality test rather than testing it before. And testing it before means to actually test it in a very realistic scenario, actually see what the vulnerabilities are and close those gaps. That's another thing our system is doing. We want to know what the current vulnerabilities are before so we can actually correct them. It's about mitigating the gap. You know, I can live with a small dissonance. I don't have to be always at level with my enemy, but I can't live with a different threshold and a dissonance where the capabilities of the adversary are way higher than my capabilities. I have to find a balance. And this is going to be a bigger and bigger challenge. We didn't find a balance with coronavirus and with the pandemic.
All right, Sam, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You got it. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.